Exceptional Randos Show is produced live in Sunroom Studios' Base Capsule and in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or a question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Wow, that was random. Exceptional Radio.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is the 3rd of September, and we've got some things to talk about. It looks like the president is suggesting that people not only send in mail-in votes, but also go into the polling places to vote in November, which is, well, that's like 2 felonies that can't commit voter fraud, but then also suggesting or trying to get people to commit voter fraud is also a felony. China's Navy is bigger than ours for the first time in, well, ever. They're trying to figure out ways to commercialize space. And, the president suggested that, what's her name? Huckabee or whatever, the former press secretary, that she take one for the team at some point, apparently. There are tree phones in Chicago, and that has to do with Amazon's, independent delivery driver network. And Burning Man is virtualized. I'm not really sure how that works. But more importantly, right now, I was just reading about a building that got just the front corner. It's actually the entrance to a restaurant, got obliterated by an SUV during a police chase. And so, of course, the question is that even necessary? How much more dangerous is it when the police decide to chase somebody? We've got cell phones. We can track pretty much anything. Surely there's a way to identify a vehicle in the vicinity of some place that's moving at a high rate of speed, because people are still stupid enough to speed away from things. Surely there's a way that a police car could tag a moving cell phone, and then that information can just be tracked. But I don't know. Tim Lukasik is joining us tonight with his own brand of what the actual fuck. And I think I want to talk about the concept of face vote, because that's the kind of thing that I might be into.
Face vote?
Face vote.
Face vote. This is where we're talking about everybody that's on Facebook voting through that.
Oh yeah, voting through Facebook. I mean, who knows? Zuck could be working on something like Face Vote.
I mean, I suggested this a couple years ago to my uncle, and he almost wanted to hit me. Because then it was someone else can hack that. Someone else can get into that and distort that. And how do you know if the information is like, we already don't know if the information is correct. It's like there's like 10 people that you probably can't trust along the way. You're hoping that it gets there.
Yeah.
You really do. You really hope that it gets there and stuff. And then for the most part, I think the overwhelmingness of what is going to need to happen this electoral round is going to be just amazingly huge. It's going to be very impressive across all fronts of voting and turnout, age groups, everything, demographic is going to be, I think it's going to be insane. But yeah, when I suggested the idea, and it's like, oh, well, they couldn't never found a way to be, to make it that secure. And it's like, let's get some kids from MIT, a couple colleges where they're just like super nerds making, awesome security, and just build your own goddamn server for it and have everyone have, authentications. If we have authentications like we do with Facebook, then why couldn't it be that easy? It'd be instantaneous. Make it like the movie Virtuosity, where there's an instant live ratings and the main bad guy is always after the ratings, wants the ratings. So everybody can instantly vote. And you could see it live time. That would actually be kind of impressive. Like, the bars would be packed that night. They'd just be watching it.
It's not as if the president of the United States doesn't use Twitter as a means of communicating with Americans. So it's like, if people who say that social media platforms aren't safe really believe that, why don't they look for a newsletter in their mailbox from the president to make sure it's secure and not, you know, how do they know his tweets haven't been hijacked? How do they know it's him tweeting? They don't know it's him tweeting, because it could, I mean, I assume it's actually him because of his ego, but more, you know, most celebrities don't actually tweet themselves. It's like Killer Mike doesn't tweet all the time himself. It's mostly his management. He's not even that famous, like, relatively. And you're talking about the president of the United States actually tweeting himself. I'd be amazed if The Rock actually, if The Rock thinks of something and he actually picks up his smartphone or his BlackBerry, whatever, and he's like, oh, that was a great thought, I'm gonna tweet this, and he actually types it out himself. If you're The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and you're like a celebrity who has a chef making all of your food, preparing the food itself, if you come up with something great that's like a great little saying, there's no way he's gonna fucking pick up the like actual shit every single time himself. And in the sense of maybe The Rock of all people might be like, oh, I don't want to be that celebrity, but most celebrities don't. And then these people are like, oh, Facebook's not secure enough to handle your vote. Well, why do you let your president tweet then? If that's the response from those people, why do you let your president tweet? Because if he uses that platform and he's actually using his cell phone to tweet, then whatever vulnerabilities Twitter has are on his cell phone. We shouldn't be using Facebook to vote. Well, our president shouldn't be using Twitter to communicate. That's just like the craziest cognitive dissonance. I mean, obviously that group is not very aware in the first place, but the things that they'll come up with that are so completely contradictory are hilarious. Because then it's like, well, how do they pay their taxes? By mail. Well, do you trust that? Yes. So all of a sudden, I mean, my thing is, I'm not afraid to go to the voting booth to actually vote, in that it's so stupid that it's all has to happen on one day. Everybody knows who the fuck they're gonna vote for now. This is so dumb that we have to wait until November 4th and not just have a rolling vote. And then they try to like rush everything. It's not even a 24-hour period. It's like a basically a 12 to 14-hour window for the actual voting. And then in 2020, 300 and I mean, I guess the absentee ballots, you know, those are a thing. But the problem is, now we know that the government is actively trying to disrupt the absentee vote. So why are we acting as if everybody knows if somebody tries to hijack my account, or if my account gets hacked because I start posting random shit? It's pretty easy to figure out. So that's how, if we're voting through Facebook, it's actually going to be fairly easy to figure out if somebody's trying to hack that shit, because it's not that anything is even unhackable, because we've had hanging chads and voting machines tampered with before. So it's not that anything's unhackable. It's a matter of how quick we can track down the breach and then fix it, because that's the issue. If we can find 5,000 votes got tampered with, 10 minutes after that shit happens, you can fucking roll it back, and it's as if it never happened. Whereas, the problem with the 2000 vote was that they had, what was it, like five? It was either 5 or 50,000 paper ballots just in a van parked somewhere after the, until the vote was over. So then they had to do the fucking recount. And it's things like this where if you had an electronic vote, the recount would be as easy as just checking the tally in the database. Nobody have to go through and hand count that shit. This is where it's insane how much technology has been created and how many excuses old people have come up with to not use that technology.
Well, those are some of the same people who think that a blockchain-based voting system would be worthless because of their understanding of Bitcoin. Who somehow see it as only a way for people to gamble, essentially, and they don't understand the way a hyperledger works. And so the idea of a hyperledger, at least right now, at least that makes sense. At least to the point until we get quantum attacks on the regular that are compromising the security of the ledger.
Yeah, it's crazy how those people don't want to learn about, want to use their ignorance of that technology or whatever technologies as a means to represent why they can't employ or why nobody should be able to employ technology.
Yeah.
My thing, want to vote electronically, you shouldn't have to vote electronically. I should have the option to vote electronically, though. That's where, I fucking renewed my license electronically. So if I can renew my license electronically, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to vote. The DMV has my fucking records, and I can renew them digitally. And there's a way that we can make sure that no random person is able to renew and get my license and switch my face out.
For some reason, it feels like it's like a fear of how fast it can be accountable, like when it comes to voting, and the pressures that like us as silly creatures put on ourselves every 4 years, and the after effects we get from people that go crazy with it. Like, it seems like there's a fear of how fast it can be accountable, or then this comes down to one douchebag trying to just fub the very end. Like, go through the whole process of trying to make sure it's the best, but really at the end, all I have to do is fake one thing, and then look what happened last time. So, or like the recount, or there's something that had to happen right there at the end because the rest of it went too good, and it was going more how it should, and then someone had to go throw that stick in the tire. It just seems like my family situation that I have with my Uncle Sam, and like what I've seen around with some other people, there is a fear of it being that accountable that fast. Like they're trying to cover up that they are lying or something. Like they have to protect it, like so quick, so harshly. Like, it's not going to work. Just never going to happen. Just forget it. Like, I've heard that talk and that conversation before. Like, literally, I've had that told to me before. And it's like, they are literally scared of how quickly accountable it could be if it was electronic and how fast it can prove results. Because there's a fear of their vote not even mattering or something. I don't know what the long run of the fear of it is, but it's a fear reaction, it looks like.
I mean, I think you're spot on, because part of it is it's not even just about the vote. It's about the entire paradigm of middlemen, because then you have Wall Street, for example, where they were reporting record highs and then the record drop in the same week when nothing is actually really happening in the economy to warrant those types of fucking weekly dramatic movements. But the problem is there's not enough transparency or enough people who know the math to deduce the problem with having a stock market that is completely unrelated to the current job market and how people are actually under pressure and under duress economically. Because then you have these, mega billionaires increasing their wealth while most people in America are suffering, and the suffering is increasing. So these things, in their disparity, not representing the real world, create a situation where there is a reason why Americans are not taught math correctly or the proper, monetary understanding of money outside of the US dollar. Like, they're not taught global economics or different frameworks beyond Keynesian trickle down or Chicago business model. Like there's a lot of reasons why these things are in place, and then that's where you can't bring the technology in, because once the transparency is there, the fucking house of cards falls apart, and then all these fake fortunes fall apart because you realize like all of the inflation is just from a bunch of people turning around and selling it to each other, and there's no actual product to
There's no real value in speculation, but somehow they're managing to siphon money out of it.
Yeah, did you make a post about that the other day, Chris? It was the stock splits with Apple and like they're just literally just like making up money just because they can at this point.
Yeah, basically. So what's happening is the United States dollar is inflating dramatically. Obviously, the Federal Reserve the flow of how much is being printed versus how much is being taken out of circulation. So when they are printing more and not taking as much out of circulation, that causes the value to go down. So one of the best ways for rich people to hedge their money against this sort of inflationary value drop is to find what they call hedges. And sometimes these are in forms of precious metals, sometimes it's stocks, sometimes it's classic cars, sometimes it's comic books. And these are when there are massive runs of inflation on the United States dollar, that's when you start hearing about all of these random things becoming newly of value. So for example, when we see these stock splits and they had these massive runs because they just arbitrarily created more stock to try to accommodate for the hyperinflation of the US dollar to then protect their wealth, it blew up and bubbled, and then the bubble burst within a week. So when you have these boom bust bubbles, these cycles have become so fast that they rise and fall within a week, whereas when we were young, they were able to drag them out over the course of seasons. So you had these things that were made to look organic when really it was just people hedging money and moving it around to protect it against inflation. And this is how we end up with like myths about Illuminati and shit. It's just really market movements around
The cash.
it's inflation. And it looks like it's coordinated when really it's just speculation. Just takes like one movement to trigger sentiment flow, and it becomes a cascade of what looks like a coordinated effort. And it's just because all these people are using the same rules. So if you learn candlesticks trading, you're going to do if you see a certain pattern, everybody's going to do the same thing. So you don't have to actually talk to someone else to have coordinated trading, because everybody's working with the same playbook. So that's why that's not to say, obviously, if there's a secret group, you don't fucking know about it. So the even notion of an Illuminati is like a paradoxical pursuit, because you can't find a secret group if it's actually secret. That said, there doesn't need to be a secret group to coordinate speculative trading when everybody's using the same playbook. So again, that's why when you have these stock splits and there's these massive rushes and the stock shoots up like 30% in a week and then it drops like 40% in a week, it's because all these people are like, oh, a bunch of people are going to go fucking put their money in. I'm going to make money off of the rise, and then before it dips. And that's where everybody's like, buy the dip. Anytime you see these types of things, people are always like, buy the dip, but you never know if that shit's going to recover, because you don't know how much of this is actual value growth and how much of it is speculation. And most of the time, it's usually just speculation. So that's where these speculative bubbles go around to different industries and different organizations, just attracting bullshit investment from people that are just trying to take their money on to prop up and retain the value in the actual wealthy people's fortunes. So if you're a person like, what's crazy about stock investing is not to say that people shouldn't try to do it, but you can only get wealthy proportional to your investment. And this is like how they try to sell it to people, as if you can like go in with $10 and trade up to $1 million. Like, yeah, you can do it over like 30 years, but that shit ain't gonna happen in like a year. But they make it seem as if you waltz into Robinhood with like $10 investment, and then you're a fucking millionaire with a few trades here and there. And it's like, that's not how that shit works at all. But again, when the information is being presented to poor people and middle class people by wealthy people, it's just to get our money in a predatory way, because we are 10 steps behind their financial movements. So for us to even think remotely that we can benefit in a way that isn't benefiting somebody else is just a form of self-delusion.
So I just did a quick Google search for penny stock millionaire, and it turns out that there was a guy who started with $1,500, and he made $1 million in profits. It took 3 years. Guess when this happened?
'92.
Oh no, so more recent than that.
Oh, okay. No.
It was in December of 2013.
Damn.
So 7 years ago was this was the top result. That was the last time that anyone did anything like that, apparently. But below that, there were numerous guides that all described the methodology behind it.
There was a kid that I went to school with in Spencer Elementary School, Nathaniel. I can't remember his last name. We in fourth grade we did the penny stocks, just play money, make it up, go with whatever. Talked to my grandparents about it. Went into like GE stuff like that. That was just like small, continuous growth, but always a good staple to invest into. And like, like this kid shows up the next day. And apparently all of his penny stocks that he invested in, because we had 10,000 in fake money, like all of it just flipped overnight. And like he got in the paper for it because they're just like, this kid just outsmarted us all, and he's in fourth grade. That was Owen County though. That was pretty entertaining to see that actually happen. I did not do any kind of profit. It did not teach me actually much about it. And then the amount of losses that I've seen people have with it comparatively to the ones that I know that did get something off of it, drastically different.
Yeah, when I was in the when I was in the 7th grade, I believe, we did the stock market thing in algebra class. And it was this really surreal experience, because everyone was, chasing after something that probably their parents suggested. And I went for a mutual fund. So I was the only person in the class that had a steady return, but because of the length of the experiment, it was a small return. But I was the only one that maintained positive growth the entire time. But it was a mutual fund, so there's one guy that his stock went up enough points that he would have made money in theory, and then but then I think he lost it. Nobody did well in that experiment, 'cause, we're in the 7th grade. None of us actually understand the stock market or economics, and it was really more an experiment to give people experience multiplying numbers and doing vague projections. We didn't even graph the information, I don't think. So that stuff's really complicated, though. Like, I don't think that there's actually. I don't remember learning anything about economics on a real level. I mean, I took a government and economics class my senior year of high school, but I don't really think that economics class, that that section during one semester was really enough. And I remember taking an economics class in college, but only vaguely. And I feel like most of the stuff that I've I've grown to understand about the economy, that stuff's all happened well after the fact. Like it wasn't that I learned a lot in my 100 level econ class. It's that it gave me enough of a foundation to understand the terminology and the language that was being used in reporting from like Business Insider or Forbes or CNN Business or whatever they call it. And I think that's the thing, is that we live in a society that's our education system has been so inadequate in so many areas for so long that we don't even recognize it. And so there are some things like,
can you invest in that like stock? Can you just be a citizen of the United States and just like give money into it and invest into an infrastructure and just make it a stock?
well, that sounds like socialism.
But like you're paying into it too, and so you're actually doing your part and you're getting something out of it. Like it's not like no one's not doing it. You're paying whatever your way of paying into it may be. But
we're supposed to have Social Security. That's supposed we're supposed to, but
supposed to.
if the tax deferment thing actually happens and employers actually do that stuff, and people are on the hook for paying it back later, there's going to be a critical gap in the payments into Social Security. Meanwhile, everyone on Social Security is still getting their Social Security distribution.
It seems like society's just playing hot potato with I don't want to pay the taxes.
Pretty much, and it's been that way since the basically the first charter for this country.
They're trading off money over and over and over again. They're like, well, I don't want to do that, so we're going to go over here. It's on unemployment now. Like, unemployment doesn't want to get it, so it's going to go over to this state fund. And then that state fund's going to be like, well, we don't want to do it. It's going to go over to this subsidiary.
I mean, there was that whole Revolutionary War that was kind of the central issue that we've been told was, no taxation without representation.
Well, which one can we make be the one holding it when time comes to look at it? So it's a game of hot potato and like
I think the military can handle
share
it.
Game.
The military's got a huge budget.
Thing.
Police have a huge budget. Education doesn't have a big budget anymore.
Right.
Healthcare is private. We're just passively indoctrinated to accept this system that we have, and we pay taxes like.
Well, there was enough people in the beginning that made this system that said this is how it's going to have to be for a long time, and there was enough of another people that went, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
and
federal,
so many
state,
played
local,
along.
Sales tax. What other kind of taxes are there? Vehicle tax.
Property tax.
Well, I think that's like part of local taxes, isn't it?
But it's, I guess, yeah. It baffles me that like you can work your whole life to try to get something that's like even out in the woods somewhere, just some fucking property, and they're like, well, you own it, yep, you owe me some money. Why? You just owe me some money. Because I exist, yeah, you just give me some money, like 130, just every now and then, just drop it in just give me some money.
So last night I was talking to a buddy of mine about how I ultimately just want to live in the country and, be able to see people driving up my driveway as far as 10 miles away, which means my house is on a hill. And so I calculated how much land would I actually have to be able to have 10-mile view in all directions from this hilltop home. And it turns out it's something like 256,000 acres. And so I go back to the internet. It's like, I want to buy 256,000 acres. Where can this happen?
How do I adopt a national park?
There is legit. There's one patch of land in New Mexico that has 256,000 acres. Some of it is Bureau of Land Management stuff. Some of it's is managed by the state, but it's all held under this one deed. And then there's like a significant portion, like 50,000 acres, that are solely the custodial management duties of the property owner. $18.5 million. $18.5 million for 256,000 acres so that I can stand on top of a hill and look out 10 miles.
Dude, what did Johnny Depp pay for Fuck Off Island for like what, $6 million more?
Well, wait, that's in Indonesia, right?
Like he bought an island and named it Fuck Off Island. Like, I mean, come on, $6 million more. Would you rather a tropical, beautiful paradise? I mean, I love the desert. I want to build like a
no, dude, he bought that entire island chain in the Bahamas for $3.6 million in 2004.
Dude, what? Yeah, like go buy like 10 islands. Like, you're gonna go burn in the desert? I'm gonna go on an island and make a tree house.
Well, shit, I'd only need one big, sufficiently large enough to have like a seaplane dock or something like that.
I'm gonna have the Jurassic Park theme play when anybody ever like pulls up, like every time. Like,
yeah, but $18.5 million just so I can look 10 miles down a driveway. That's an absurd fantasy.
Yeah, they don't make any more of land, and that's the.
Yeah, they do. That's not true.
Yeah.
Well,
that whole thing. That's another thing that people say. Like they really make islands. There's entire islands that are man-made.
Oh yeah, the flotilla airports and stuff like that. I've seen that, like the man-made like floating cities and shit like that. Yeah.
Atlantis, the resort, is built on man-made islands.
Yeah, it's made on a bunch of like, they look like metal jacks when you play hopscotch or jacks. You throw the
oh yeah.
The giant cement jacks basically, and they interlock, and then stuff gets caught in between them, like ocean debris and sand, and eventually they pour stuff over them so they can build on them. There are actually quite a few artificial islands.
Yeah. And that's. And it's like people will say that to make it seem as if real estate is like this. This gets back to that bullshit math. It's like they'll say, "Oh, there's no more land, so real estate will forever go up in value." That's not even fucking true, and that's why we had the real estate crash.
Well, we just found another way to build out.
Yeah.
Like
exactly. I mean, but even then, the land moves constantly. That's why it has to get surveyed every year, because the land is moving constantly. We just think of it as static because it's underneath our feet.
When I was growing up in California, there was a pretty heavy element of geology, and with that came plate tectonic study, because we had to know about earthquakes. We had earthquake drills.
Yep.
They wanted us to know about these things. Like the Pacific Ring of Fire was something that people actually talked about. And then I moved to Indiana, and there's like zero discussion of earthquakes, and I don't remember any plate tectonics discussion in any of the science classes that I took until I was out of. Well, no, maybe for a little while in physics we talked about it, but it wasn't like a part of the history courses, the Western history course, the European and American history course, and it definitely wasn't wasn't part of a biological science course.
That's a weird thing that I'm now realizing too, from like growing up in California also to coming out here. Like no one talked about any of that stuff. When I was a kid, I watched race riots on TV, mudslides, like houses get eaten, like orange crushed, earthquakes. I went through a couple of them at my house when I was a kid in Quail Valley, and then another one in Paris, California, when I was working on the ranch, and then like fires, and then there was helicopters flying over one summer that were dumping water from Lake Elsinore that was taken into the hills behind us that were on fire, like news helicopters flying. Like I've experienced all of that, and then when I came here, no one said anything about any of that shit.
Well, I remember my first tornado drill. They're like, go into the hallway and cover curl up and cover the back of your neck. And it's like, okay, this is like half, not even half. This is like the first step of protecting yourself during an earthquake.
Yeah.
It was really surreal. Fire drills I was used to, earthquake drills I was used to. Come here, tornado drills. We're gonna run into the hallway and cower.
Yeah, those were weird. I remember doing like both of the earthquake and tornado drills as a kid, but it seemed like the way that they were doing them was just 100% theater.
Yeah.
And if actually it happened, a bunch of us would have been hurt.
I remember one fire drill. So I went to this middle school that was the school building itself was this big ass brutalist structure that looks like it was balancing on top of a central cube. And I remember one fire drill. We were standing outside, and then one of my teachers, he was talking to one of the administrators, and they decided, okay, we're going to move a little bit further away from the building. And I remember asking him, I was like, so what's the deal with that? He's like, well, when they built this thing, they put the outside concrete plates on the wrong way out. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, notice that the building surface is corrugated. And I said, yeah. He's like, well, that's actually supposed to hold the glue against the building. And I said, oh. And he said, yeah, the building's supposed to be smooth. And so there wasn't sufficient surface area on these plates of cement to hold, or concrete, to hold them against the building. And if there was a fire and it got hot enough, they would release, and these things could fall down. So we had to be, an extra 50 feet away from the building or something like that.
Hey guys, we fucked up. We made the fire more dangerous. Like, what the fuck? Like, hey guys, I know that we were supposed to have been like training you how to like not be in danger, but we made the not danger part actually dangerous. Yeah. So stay away from it extra, because we just totally fucked it up and made it way worse.
Yeah.
Shock and awe, like coastal stuff and like the stuff to be prepared for. In Orlando, dude, we had 4 armed police officers in my middle school. Like, that was normal. That was every day. My bus went to the police station a couple times. That was like crazy. Like, I don't know. In the Midwest, like there is some deer in the way, and there's a stoplight on the freeway, and that was most of the news. Welcome to COVID land, I guess. I did like that article that you showed me on the VR technology where they're building Burning Man.
Oh yeah, virtual Burning Man.
Virtual Burning Man. It reminds me of that Portlandia episode where they have to put on the VR helmets because they're just too old and hipster and can't go to a concert, so a drone goes for them. You just put on a bubble helmet. But like, they actually did perfect that technology. I think that's pretty dope. Like, I'm guessing you're probably going to be one of the cameras fixated atop a 15 or 22 foot tall pole that someone's like effect. Like, that's what you're going to see in the virtual built world. Like the graphics that I saw looked pretty cool. The one guy telling his story, like how he was instantly taken back to being actually at Burning Man.
I feel like it would just be GTA in the desert at a party instead of driving cars and blowing shit up.
It'd be worse. Like, it'd just be like worse than GTA. Like, because it's all virtual. There's no responsibility. You can just respawn. Like,
well, has either of you been to a burn?
Yes.
I have not been to a Burning Man. And
well, not a Burning Man. I've been to I guess it was a hippie congregation where they set shit on fire, and they had an effigy of a man made out of wood that they set on fire.
Yeah, they're burns because the Burning Man is a specific one, but I went to one that was a love burn.
Yeah.
In which they did like multiple night burns. Because they'll create, it's like a mandala where they create a big art piece and then burn it. That's the whole premise behind it. So there's this element. I mean, it's not just a mandala, but they
make a lot of different things.
Yeah, for sure. But the notion of something that's impermanent, that's why it's called a burn, because everything that's the main focus will get burnt at the end.
Yeah.
They actually make you sign waivers, like death waivers, to go in. So it's like, I've never signed a death waiver except to go to a burn. Because again, it's like, they know people are not going to be able to necessarily be controlled in the furthest reaches of that event. So whatever happens, you can't hold them responsible, because it's like, miles and, tens of miles, maybe
from anything
of square footage of like how that actual like compound or wherever it happens is going.
Little cities that emerge.
And then that's where, again, there's so many people on it and so much shit happening. They can't be like, they're saying you can't hold us responsible because there's so much shit to cover. We can't possibly cover it all, which is very much accurate.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple lands, a couple places I had to sign a waiver for the 3-day weekend. There's usually we did a big hollowed out log fire in the center of a geometric dome, and those things get super hot and super tall burning.
Those basically turn into a giant like afterburner once the core burns out. I've been to those kind of events where they throw like, various handfuls of different types of metal into the fire to give it different colors, and it'll also cause the jet to shoot up an additional 10 feet.
Yeah.
That stuff's crazy. I think that something like that at least if it looked like GTA on a really nice system, that would be pretty cool. I think something like that could work. There would just have to be a way to actually make it so when the object is set ablaze, that the data itself is rendered inert, I guess, so it can't be re-rendered. How do you do that? Something like that. How do you carry over that kind of concept into a digital world, into a virtual world where things are essentially avatars for code?
Well, it's crazy because they had actually been working on that years before COVID hit. It just happened to be something that they were planning to do, because I was seeing a lot of the development stuff for creating the virtual spaces. So they were trying to get people more involved with virtualizing and augmenting the burns in the first place.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of timing that they had happened to work on it. So it's like all of the elements of what made a burn, like, because part of it is a lot of people think it's about the drugs, when obviously for some people that's an aspect of it, but really it's supposed to be about the art and the community. So if those things are present, then you really have obviously you can't do the same burn, but if they destroy the world at the end, then it gives the same sort of sense, where, because these things I think are meant to also be a callback to the happenings of the 60s, I guess the 50s, 60s, and 70s, really.
And data events.
Right. Yeah, because it's like...
So that would have been like in the 20s.
Yeah, but I'm saying the whole point is to like have these things that are in the presence of media that is captured, but you don't capture the event, in that it's meant to be something that is encapsulated in time.
Yeah.
Meant to try to be reaccessed again. Like the 20s aren't necessarily the same in that they're not really...
Oh, I was just giving a date range for data.
Well, I'm saying in the sense of the whole reason the happenings are kind of a big deal is because they had the capacity to record them, but they actively did not record them as part of it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, it's meant to be
experienced
thing now. So if you're not here, you can't participate, because if you record it and try to like experience it through the recording, you're not experiencing what's actually happening here.
Yeah.
And that's why it is an extension of the Dadaism, but it's more of also it's meant to be juxtaposed against recorded media and live broadcast, for that matter.
Yeah.
Because then you have let me look up the name of this so I don't get it wrong.
Well, I've seen a bunch of like time lapses of burns, and some of that stuff's pretty cool, but the thing that a screen can't reproduce is that heat and that sound of something so massive actually being set on fire. I was just thinking about it. It's like, I mean, you could theoretically like get like a Matrix style camera rig and build that around some kind of miniature, and then place that as an augmented object in a virtual space, and then set that on fire in real life, and then transmit that information into the virtual space. But I feel like that actually might be overkill.
Well, but then that's still, it doesn't transcend, because then
It doesn't
one
have
of
the heat.
best examples is the Ant Farm media burn, in which they stacked a pile of TVs, set them on fire, and then drove a car through them. meant to show that even though it was a media court event that attracted the media attention, the viewer at home could not participate in the event because they were not there. And that was the entire point of like, it's burning the media because they're exploiting the media's capacity to not cover something like that, even though the people at home aren't actually going to be involved because they're disconnected through the media. And it's like highlighting this disconnect that also gives this false sense of connection. And that's like something that I think a lot of people are then conditioned into that is really hard to decondition.
Well, that engenders the question, if you're just watching a baseball game on TV, are you actually watching the baseball game or are you watching the TV?
I mean, it's both, but this is back to duality or, there is a dualist existence that American Western thought is like actively occluding. It's difficult for people to see dualism because we are presented with black and white paradigm. It's either or, it's black or white. It can't be black with white shadows or white with black shadows rather. And that's like is one of those elements where, because dualism takes the understanding of seeing that you can't have one side without the other, this whole paradigm of the black and white is very difficult to transition into a dualist thought mindset, which is why it's like, yeah, you can be watching the TV and the baseball game at the same time, but understand when you're watching the baseball game mediated by the TV, it's not the same experience as watching the baseball game without the TV. It's those are two different things where there's an overlapping element, but it's not 100% the baseball game. Now the TV is an element in the process as to why when the commercials come on.
The pseudo live event. I've seen like Tomorrowland had a bunch of commercials for like how they were going to turn into a digital landscape and promote it. And it was pretty much just like a webcam in front of somebody. And the festival that moved it, over to online, everybody logs in at once and you're just basically watching a video of a dude play for a little bit. And then they have like, they had some pretty cool like graphics that if you can get it up on your TV or project it, like the screen of the DJ was in the middle, but they had graphics that were very Tomorrowland themed. But really, it's just you're just watching that one little screen for a little bit. So it's not like the immersive experience of the crowd. The virtual experience with the Bonnaroo thing, I did like that zoomed out thing, cut diagram that showed like the bubble of where they would be projecting the entire show. And then the little avatar that the people would be down below looking up at the ceiling, and the whole entire ceiling in this VR world would be. So like you can go into like different contexts and different textures of rooms and stuff and find different shows there like throughout VR. Instead of just having a virtual experience, virtual reality experience, an augmented reality, I think would be an awesome combination and probably the actual next step that you'd have to do.
So I just linked to a project that I helped. They had a lot of the concept fleshed out. I just helped them come up with better ways to utilize the technology. So there's like a Megadeth VR dystopia bunker that's like Megadeth. That's like a VR space where you could go see like Megadeth approved shit. Basically, it's like they worked with them on this.
Yeah, I know Dave got really, really harsh about that shit. He didn't like his stuff on karaoke for a while.
Well, but this is like a project they worked directly with the company on, so it's not like that's what I'm saying. They didn't. This company didn't just come in and like do Megadeth stuff. They worked with Megadeth.
Oh no, I'm saying that's like Dave. Dave is a real big fan of making his stuff like super unique.
Oh,
and like tough to get for other people. Like he has it, and then you make sure that you use only his version.
In line with this thing, because then the way that Sïk created virtual spaces. They started this in like, it's either 2016 or 17, so it was way before COVID. So what they were trying to do was leverage technology to create something that you couldn't do in the real world. So now when you're going, like, the whole reason I linked this video was
totally Dave Mustaine.
it's like when they went to this level of trying to create a virtual space for artists that's specifically tuned to what the artist represents, then you have all these different virtual spaces. It's much more like, I don't know if you saw that Fortnite Travis Scott experience, but it's more like that, but for an experience rather than, it's not a game. So this thing has been in development for a while. They're not the only ones doing it, but again, this is kind of where when I was in like 2017, when I'm trying to explain what this shit could be for people, and COVID hasn't happened yet, people are like, what the fuck you need a virtual concert hall for? It's like, man, you don't understand the benefits of a virtual concert hall. In 2017, that shit sounded so stupid to people, and I'm sitting here trying to explain the benefits of, like, oh, you could go up to, like, if you were at an Adele concert and a virtual concert and you paid like $50 extra, you could walk up and she would talk directly to you as one of her biggest fans. You can't do that shit in real life. It's not that easy. But in a virtual space, it's that easy. So they were trying to get these, like, there's all these things where if you could get a virtual autograph from somebody, but it has its own unique digital ID, so that's actually a digital signature tied to that person, and you got their autograph in virtual space. Or like if you were playing Halo with fucking 50 Cent and 50 Cent fragged you, and you're like, oh, I got fragged by 50 Cent, and you wanted to like get a selfie with 50 Cent on like the platform. There's all these things that you can do virtually to interact, where you're interacting with people. Like if you got on a Zoom call with The Rock, you want to fucking show people you on a Zoom call. It doesn't matter if it's not in real life or not. If you're on a fucking Zoom call with The Rock, you want to show that shit to people. So there's all these elements of, because people want to encapsulate experiences where they interact with celebrities, whether virtually or in real life, this is where Sïk was trying to come in to encapsulate that aspect in 2017. And now in like 2020, it's obvious where virtual concert halls and venues would come in if done correctly, because that's what, you know, one of the things you're pointing out is there's no, if they just make it and it's like not added to the experience at all, there's no real reason to do it. Just throw on a fucking DVD of a concert and get some real big ass speakers and throw on like
I have done this. yes Okay, back in the day, like 2012 to 2015, I started reading about the HoloLens and stuff like that. And once I watched the medical video, where they, like, you can have a whole entire classroom, and not with a cadaver, virtual learning experience, have a whole entire classroom of every single student learning exactly the same thing at the exact same time, all over the world from their living room, with the exact same professor teaching in the exact same way and showing zoom ins and zoom outs, the stuff that it could do mechanically for like the future. Like that stuff was insane. That had me like, yes, I'm on board with this. And in 2020, we're like, make us VR and plug us in so we don't go crazy. Like, like we give us some solace. Let me look at something other than the four walls that I've been in for 5 months.
Well, there's a new Oculus on the horizon.
A new Oculus, you said?
Yeah.
The first round of Oculus didn't look as enjoyable to me, and I was still really about the HoloLens was a little bit more Tony Stark to me.
Yeah.
Like the two lens screens and the multiple projections of 7 different camera lenses that are filming and projecting at the same, like, or multiple times, or like double setup of cameras or whatever, filming surroundings, and it's laser 3D mapping capabilities. So it can just get used to your surroundings, like your bedroom. Like I wouldn't need a physical laptop. I could literally just have a digital one floating, and I just say open app, and a digital one gets drawn up on my desk.
Sure.
You know, like the adaptation and the versatility of how much you would use it on a day-to-day.
I think that the promise of augmented reality was not fully realized. I think that there's still a lot more traction in virtual reality simply because there's a world of games that people want to play. And they exist already. Whereas augmented reality, it seems that there's more of an intent.
Well, that's like a Ready Player One crossover because that's what they pretty much do. It's an augmented that you can play as a character in any game ever or any game ever. You know, like you could go jump in Castlevania, but then you can just go play racing, or you can go to that Murder Mountain planet, and or you like.
Well, Windows has had Windows Mixed Reality. It's been around for a little while, I guess, probably as long as HoloLens. And most of the hardware for it, though, is VR. It's stuff. It's headsets that'll work in Steam, or just designed for VR, virtual reality environments. There's less emphasis on the augmented reality headsets, the HoloLens itself. I think for that, that's actually pretty accessible, provided you have, the minimum of hardware to support it. It's out there. It's built into Windows. You just got to buy the right kind of video card and the right kind of headset.
Oh, so what is that VR place in Denver, where it's like a warehouse?
Chris knows all about that place.
Like, I really want to try that place out. It takes almost an hour to walk through, 4-player, multiple rooms, controlled climate, like interactive augmented reality VR mix, like the Void or something like that. Like, that place looks dope as fuck. Like, talk about playing a goddamn video game. You are the video game. That's like that was like the last coolest, like, take that and a little bit of HoloLens, Tony Stark tech kind of stuff, and that would be fucking amazing.
Well, and the issue, though, is when it goes to that level, you have to actually be good at real life and digital stuff to be at that level. So it's only be like...
Just like a mountain bike park, there's going to have to be a beginner, intermediate, and expert course.
I was going to say, like, the highest level is going to be, like, former military that happen to like video games, because those people exist, but those are going to be, like...
They're going to want it like gamer, yeah.
Of the AR, VR competition, which is why you already have the military creating an esports team. They're already positioned. Like, no, I'm serious. Like, they're already positioned to go into esports. Like,
damn.
Force has an esports team or esports team. Like, I'm not even joking. I mean,
no, but you know what? I trust digital training, repetitive digital training, more than actual fucking simulated live round.
I mean, yeah, that's what.
Or any other fucking type of weird terroristic looking fucking Black Ops Syrian Death Squad fucking movement through the fucking streets bullshit. Like,
well, that's where their simulators have been so good, because they made them that way. That's why they use them for like the last few decades, you know.
And see, this is why I want to invest in a rage room. I so want to invest in a rage room right now. Like, that'd be like the one market right now that's socially distant compliant. There's a bunch of shit at Goodwill that's just been dumped off for months lately. Just go buy a stockpile of shit that no one wants anyways. Just fill a room full of it and just let them smash all their fucking aggressions out. I think that'd make a mint right now.
Here's a hack for anybody. If you got a bag of dirty laundry, that is actually good to hit as well. Because I was playing a video game and it was giving me some frustration. I had a big bag of laundry and I was like, oh shit, you can kick this like a fucking heavy bag, and it definitely works.
It's a big homie, don't play that sock.
Basically.
I have my dad's old military laundry duffel bag, like that white military like jersey, but really dense plastic kind of almost fabric, or like threaded material. So it's kind of stretchy, but yeah, that thing can like stretch out and fit a lot. And I've moved a couple times and filled it, and I was just mad that, like, you know, after getting done moving, back's worn out, just tired. It's like, fuck it, I kicked it. I was like, damn, that thing's like a big old pillow. It's a big old homie. Homie, don't play that sock.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the benefit of like active venting.
Humans were meant to sweat and to get it out.
Yeah, for sure. That's the damn truth.
So in Chicago, there's this scam going on with there's tree phones. There's some guy sitting in a parking lot and making sure that these phones are charged and are connected to a network. And the way it works is Amazon's got some delivery, and they're private contractors or independent contractors who, I mean, I can only imagine they're doing like what is it, like Postmates or the food delivery stuff or Uber Eats, right? That kind of stuff.
It's anti-hooky.
Yeah. Well,
it's not that you're not there; it's that you're everywhere.
Well, no, the problem is that the way that they hand out the offers for here's a job, here's the delivery is you got to be close enough to pick it up on time, and so these devices are securing the job, even though the person's not even in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And
so like the phone is sending out that they're close because the app's open on that phone.
Yeah.
And so their phone also has the same app, but they're in the car.
Yep.
So that phone will still ping it. That's playing anti-hooky.
Yep.
You're taking something, and instead of saying you're not there, you're saying that you're everywhere at once at the same time.
Yeah.
But you're just using the app as a ping location.
Yep.
So there's people that were doing this that were like on a couple other apps of like the DoorDash and stuff with certain restaurants where it was like couples, and they'd both get an account, and they'd both like, oh yeah, we share a vehicle, we take turns driving, and they just go out for like 18 hours. And like they would just sit right in front of Chipotle during peak college season, and then they would get both asked to pick up like 10 orders a piece. So they would sit there, and like while they were getting, like they're sitting in the parking lot, 10 orders turned into 12 orders, turned into 16 orders, turned into 18 orders because they were both right there. And this clicked yes, and this went in there and grabbed every single order at once, put it in their truck, and just did a lap through town.
Wow.
They had Google Maps premium, and so they can go all the way up to fucking Z, on their fucking planning. And they put in all the fucking locations on the thing, and it did a loop through town. They turned the app off so they didn't get pinged again while they're doing it. So there's different ways of playing hooky like that. There's where a bunch of you can get together in one fucking vehicle, and then you can all like ping the same location, being close enough.
The way that this is happening in Chicago, there's like one guy, the tree master, who's sitting there in his vehicle making sure these devices are all charging and ready to go. And they're the one managing that device to turn it on or off, to say it's available or not. And, all these drivers are giving this person like some small fee to do this for them.
Yeah.
Because it's lucrative enough.
It's same thing with bomb sniping. So like when someone comes in from out of town to a city that does a lot of money really fast, and the rates are different, say like Bloomington, Indiana, they bring somebody and they give them $100 debit card. So they fill the debit card on, and they go get like a phone, like a beater phone, burner phone. And then they have their friend sit somewhere and like order like a 5-star fucking Uber. And then like the 5-star Uber driver, like, oh, look, their rating's not that bad. Usually it's probably because they're new. Fucking picks them. The address is way the fuck away from downtown where all the business is at. And then you get there, and then as long as the order for the run is within the first 3 minutes, doesn't charge them. So if they update the address at 2 minutes and 50 seconds, it resets that timer. So they'll sit there and they'll change the address like a block and a half further away each time. So people that are doing it, they're pretty much, they're sniping.
Yeah.
They're sniping off the people that are working, so their friend, whoever they're working for, can get more money, because the people that are there already working are going to take these calls for people that want high-rated or specific vehicles. They'll get them out of the way, and then they'll go into town and they'll get pinged faster.
Wow.
There's another way of like a driver having a separate phone and then like calling or trying to hail a ride, and then like getting it and then canceling it and then turning on his app for driving and then pinging it. That way it takes up the time of a different driver somewhere in the area. Like there's ways to sandbag. It's all sandbagging fucking tactics. And that's what they're doing with this. This is like anti-sandbagging. So they're just basically using the phone as a ping device. They could be sitting in their living room at home. And then there's a phone hanging in a tree saying that they're over there by this Amazon factory or Target or fucking DoorDash, wherever. And then it says they're the closest and it's going to ping them every fucking time, no matter what, because no one can be that close all the fucking time.
Yeah. You'd think that these people would just try to become official Amazon delivery drivers if they're going to do it like that. But
well, all the liability in these jobs are put on the people that are doing the jobs, and they're expecting them not to do the wrong thing. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, if you are driving an Amazon delivery vehicle, then Amazon absorbs the liability.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's where the big thing is with all of this, and how much can you get away with? The lucrative market of there's steady money in Amazon owning the truck and being its own delivery company. But there's really fast money that can kind of get unaccounted for here and there, swept underneath the fucking rug, a digital blah, 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 blah happened here. I was a part of that with Uber, and I got a bunch of money fucking paid to me one time. It was like a couple $100. But like fucking digital bullshit fucking went wrong with theirs, and fucking money went somewhere else or some shit like that with their digital transferring company. And so like all of that's so fast and unaccountable, but it's really fast, but it's not accountable. Like at all. In certain areas, like they come out with like a user agreement so fast sometimes people disagree to it. You don't know what's going on with it or agreeing how you get your money. I didn't like, and there's a lot of other stipulations. Like I didn't know that Fifth Third Bank didn't take direct deposit electronically, and they were sandbagging my payments that were from Uber because the company that was giving my direct deposit was from California. There's all these little things that like to start sandbagging each other thing, and like
so
the jobs are quick money, but there's a lot of bullshit that entails with them.
Did they just like hold your money in a PayPal account or something like that, or did they try to send you a check?
No, they like I got a fucking message from the company that gives the direct deposit from Uber saying that like the money was declined, that they wouldn't take it because of something. I needed to contact my bank or debit card holder and stuff like that, and I got a hold of Fifth Third, and like they were just like, oh yeah, well we don't really deal with that. And it's like, how are you a fucking bank in today's age and you guys, your commercials as a Fifth Third better? What the fuck are you doing that's a Fifth Third better? Like you ain't doing shit right now, man. Like I have a way to give you just like untold money every fucking day, and they were just like blocking money. I couldn't work in Indianapolis 500 one weekend doing Uber because they blocked money on my card.
They're definitely not 2/3 more than your average bank then.
I tried to deposit money, so I like that day I went up there. I've been easy like 130 like in the first 4 hours that I was up there. I cashed that out, went to the gas station, took a piss, grabbed a fucking soda and some donuts, filled up my gas tank. I was gonna drive all fucking night, and then like my gas pump stopped early. And I was like, what the fuck? I just direct deposited this. And I looked at my Uber app and the money said it went through. And I was like, what the fuck? And luckily, this is probably about like 2:00 in the afternoon. And like I called them and then they were just like, oh yeah. So no, we have problems with those kind of jobs that take direct deposit electronically like that. We don't really want to deal with them. So we usually put a hold on them now because that's our new policy with it. And I was like, this is my job. I need the whole point that I got a bank account with you guys because you guys said you can do this.
So
and now
what bank out there is most accepting of this kind of economy?
Like digital, right? Actually, like a lot of the stuff that gets advertised through Uber was like a lot of digital stuff. It wasn't German American. It wasn't Fifth Third. It wasn't Chase. Like there was Chase for a little bit. There's a Visa Black Card kind of debit card system thing, but the one that's like the most easiest adaptable was like just like let us link to your account. I didn't have a problem really with IU Credit Union. Like since it was coming in, they don't have a problem with that money going out. They have all these boundaries about, which is what I like about IU Credit Union. Like that that was pretty cool.
At least they'll take your money into your account, right?
Yeah, no, and that was the thing. It's like if I made the money and I directly deposited it in there, I don't want my bank, the place that's supposed to give me my money, to go, oh, well, we just don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck kind of answer is that? We just don't like doing that stuff, and so we have policies on it. And it's like, so you're actively sabotaging the people that are wanting accounts with you. And they're like, well, but, it's like, so you set up predatory accounts to give a loan on something that 2/3 of the world works off right now is direct deposits, and you don't like them. So you're going to fuck with my account and sandbag me this way. So the whole loan, the whole account, the whole entire thing was just to get you in there, and then later on they're like, oh, you're going to play by these rules because they're stupid. These rules are stupid, so you're just going to have to do them.
So speaking of policy, recently IU has closed down the Greek system. They're all quarantined. They're all locked down. And I'm not a student at IU, so I don't get any of those kind of updates. But Chris is pursuing his doctorate. Have you received any, immediate policy changes as a result of quarantining the Greek system? Chris, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not doing my degree through IU, so yeah, it's not. I'm not getting any information about that.
Okay. Huh. Because it's been like a couple weeks, it seems, and they're shutting it all down. I gotta find that message I sent my mom about it.
It's not surprising how fast it happened at all, especially with the reputation of the school and just my working to the bar and social jobs, Ubering and stuff like that. Like that was the biggest fear that I had of Ubering, and that's why I'm glad I didn't do it, because that was like 100% chance.
Well,
exponential growth vector.
It started out on August 27th. That's like a week ago.
Yeah. So what they were saying, like the other dorms are like under 1%, but like the frats are at a higher rate or something like that. But the last that I heard was Sunday that there was 2,600 known cases positive on campus. And as of Sunday, there was 34 that got added to that, or 38, something like that.
Wow. What I'm looking at right now is the timeline for quarantining the Greek system. It's like 8 the first day. 2 days later, on the 29th, they quarantined 3 more on Monday, 5 more on Tuesday.
Dude, I've worked
4 more on Wednesday. 7.
I've worked at houses before. Like, do you know the mournful faces, the absolute mournful fucking faces on the fucking utility and cleaner workers that come out in the daytime and the afternoon?
Oh,
the
God.
actual just pure, just zapped of their fucking life and humanity force. Like their glow is gone. They saw a puppy strangled in front of them, but 10 times worse. Like,
well, the Greek houses that
I've
IU
seen
have
some cleaners come out of there just broken looking, and their face was just like, I'm not expecting these places to be clean as fuck. Plus, these houses have been there forever, dude. I do not want to know what's in any of those drains.
So
period.
last Monday they did a mitigation test, and they had 274 positive cases out of 7,800, and which is a 3.5% positivity rate. And so then they test the Greek houses, and they have an 8.1% positivity rate. And no, here's the thing, though. The students in residence halls had a 1.6% positivity rate.
Hey, but you know what? They couldn't eat ass without a mask on. I'm glad that we all saw that picture.
Oh, God. Well, no, that's the thing. Is like the Greek house resident positivity rate is over double of the average for the campus. and then
Yeah.
the residence halls is 1/4 of the Greek house resident positivity rate. It's like half of the campus positivity rate. That's just like, it just blows my mind. Like, why?
Well,
How?
dude, it's colleges are little tiny test towns.
Well, of course.
So if we're looking at this as a demographic as actual truth right now, we're just seeing it fucking firsthand quicker on how much it's actually affecting the greater. Like, sorry to say it, but like, take those inhibitions away. Those people are going to still do what they're going to naturally do.
Yeah.
You can take that and apply that to any part of society. So we're watching a little tiny test town right now that was built in the 50s, not expected to fucking ever handle this amount of people in a 3-piece suit, but wearing fucking yesteryear's underwear. Like, and we're just watching it play out. Everything that everybody was like worried, genuinely, humanly, like with the utmost empathy, worried about is happening. Like, I don't like. It's kind of baffling that like it hasn't been addressed, because I think everybody kind of had a big waft of what the fuck hit them in the face. When we're just like, no, this is exactly what we were like. Oh shit, this is such a real possibility right now. We should probably think about this. And then no one, well, I'm going to say a side came along and was like, well, we really need the money.
You know what? I kind of want to. I'm going to try and put on a conspiracy hat for a second. I've seen this this meme going around, and the only way that it makes sense is if they allow students to go back and then get sick, but they can only reach critical mass after the drop ad period has passed, or the withdrawal period has passed, because that way the money is locked in.
Yeah, the universities end up having to keep, like, they can keep the money because they said per contract they gave them the quality experience and the time allotted at minimum that they could give them within reasonable doubt of keeping the money. And so then afterwards, as long as there's a clause saying that as long as IU adequately and responsibly provides any other adequate forms of attending class or going to school, for however they can provide that, i.e. through any app or fucking laptop or at-home courses or any of that shit, or any professor willing to do it, they're willing to do it. As long as they're willing to offer it, their asses are still covered. That means they still keep the money.
Yeah, it was such a cash grab. It was such an obvious cash grab.
It just seems.
Dude, I attended a couple of those virtual online meetings for the budget council and IU, like what they were talking about when they were talking about bringing students back and stuff. And I simply just asked them, it's like, so how much are you guys in debt right now? Is that why you're making this happen? They're building a hospital. They're buying out every single bankrupt hospital in the state of Indiana for the past 6 years. Like, that's just obvious. They just go somewhere and they put their name on it. It's like how Marsh used to move around, or how Big Red Liquors took over. They just bought everything and put their fucking name on it. Now they're a conglomerate. And so, okay, yeah, they're building that. They own pretty much, 2/3 of the fucking town. Everything else is about getting contracts and media, and they have a huge tenured professor thing. I'm not saying this place is not a great place of education. There are some great ass classes here. I'm just saying there's a lot of people using it for the wrong fucking thing. And I think that's fucking with things right now. And I think that amount of fucking with those things, and it was being looked at like a dollar amount more than anything else, that's kind of a dick fucking move. And I think everybody called it. I think there's a lot of people that called it, that was exactly worried about this exact fucking thing. And it's not it's no one wants to constantly hear the "I told you so" story and shit. I get that, but you only really have to hear the ones that actually mean it when you should have had a sit down conversation about it. Like, you actually should have thought it out a little bit more. That's the same thing about infrastructure. That's the same thing about public education, early primary education, something that I've been ranting about for fucking years. Like, that shit really needs the conversation. It needs a sit down. It needs a fucking conversation, and it needs attention. or this type of shit just keeps on fucking, for someone else's moderate amount of money, it's going to keep on making a lot of others suffer for nothing, for no money, for no value. Actually, it takes the value away. It's demeaning at this point.
Well, they keep taking money away from public education, and eventually, who's going to teach it if there's no money to pay the educators? How are we
so
going to? How do we even have an education system? You know, how can we actually call it that anymore?
That meme that came out that was like, look, if you're a teacher and you went to school, do this. Get 15 kids together. Tell the parents, hey, I'll do this for this much money per kid for a year. This covers all of that. This covers me. This is what you're getting.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, 170 minimum if you go kind of cheap? 170 grand a fucking year to personally teach a group of fucking 15 fucking kids and be like, hey, look, I will teach your kids. You'll still get like summers with them. And there's breaks. Like if you just did that locally, if there was a union, if there was a way to make that like kind of just like find a handyman, find a local teacher that's certified and can I hire them? When are they available? If I can get a personal teacher 3 days a week to be able to teach my kid, you know, and then 2 days a week I pitch in and do it or something like that, or have full programs where it's like, oh no, this is a full-on fucking teacher like regular school, but it's more intimate and personal at their house and shit like that. If you charge enough for that and it's actually fucking worth it, like, you know, your kid's getting the attention and you know that it's happening in a very personal, intimate environment where the lessons are going to stick. It's going to be very social. It's very human-based. Interactions going to be taught how to talk to each other, how to write, how to see someone write, how to see someone talk in front of you, how to see others interact and stuff like that. That's really important, I feel, in early development.
Issue is that it's obviously, if that was possible, that would be fantastic. But when you start adding up the numbers, it quickly doesn't scale for anybody who doesn't make above, like, if you're not making above probably $30,000 a year, that what you just described isn't even remotely close to being attainable. Because it's like, okay, let's say somebody makes 20 grand a year. Well, how much are they going to pay the teacher each week or each month for their kids' education when you're paying proportionally for a school district or even for tuition? Like, the tuition is spread out amongst a bunch of people, so that's where, even though the teachers aren't getting paid a lot, like, the onus of the individual versus what the teacher should then be compensated is then going to go up a lot more on that model. So then that's what I'm saying, only actually wealthy, I mean, not necessarily wealthy, but you have to be above a certain level of income to actually take advantage of that. And that's where it's like, it's great in theory, but it's not really attainable for a lot of people. I know, like, a lot of my friends are actually able to pull it off because they're, you know, in better situations than some people. But that's where I'm like, I know those people aren't the norm. So that's where I'm like, I gotta look at, you know, again, there's this element of this system was meant to put people in vulnerable spots in the first place. So, like, all the people who were struggling parents last year aren't going to be in a spot this year where they can pay an individual teacher to take care of their kids' educational needs and then fairly compensate the teacher. And that's where it's like,
Well,
it's just an unfortunate reality of living in a country that constantly underpays, and then makes people feel as if the underpayment and underemployment is normalized. Like, everybody's just, we've been accustomed to working 2 and 3 jobs to get full-time hours or full-time, the equivalent of what would be a full-time employment. because the market has conditioned us to accept underemployment so much that then in the pandemic, when our government is then not covering us in the way they should, or the way that they're covering big corporations and wealthy people, then we're forced to try to come up with ways to subsist as if we're not actively having our financial situation made worse by the people that are supposed to be making it less stressful. So
So
that's
there's a NBC piece that I just shared in right in the middle of it, actually towards the end. It's called the section is called "The Cost of Reopening," and so it reads: Under Federal CARES Act, $13.5 billion was earmarked for K through 12 schools to help coordinate long-term school closures, purchase educational technology to support online learning for all students, fund activities to address unique needs of low-income students, boost mental health service, and pay for various other plans necessary for optimal and safe learning. The Department of Education has distributed all of those funds, but as of Friday, and this is, when is this? This is July 19th. So July 19th. As of Friday, only 2% of that money has been expended or drawn down by states, as reported by the DOE, the Department of Education. So this means that the money has yet to trickle down. So once again, trickle-down economics has failed education.
Yep, sure has.
It's trickling down through a sponge that's constantly absorbing all the leftovers.
It's one of those cork coasters that just absorbs and drinks it up.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's constantly bleeding out for no fucking reason. But don't worry, they already made the thing to soak up the leftovers, so you don't get any. God, it's another one of those things. It's like hospitals, libraries, basic things like that of like human life. Like, okay, as like adults, like we understand we got like rent and mortgages, and we can figure out loans and stuff like that. But as a kid, like I expect you to know how to wash your own asshole by the third grade, maybe fourth. You know, like that should just be like like there should be standards like of what stuff you get introduced to and how to take care of yourself in life. That is just standards across the board, because it feels like there's a lot of animosity floating between a big crowd of saying this is common knowledge and this is how things actually fucking work because we've read about it and studied it, and this is what everybody says.
So
there's a big crowd that doesn't know.
The Cheetah Mussolini's fiscal year 2021 budget, it cuts funding for museums and library services. Like he's called for a total shutdown of the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
I saw an article where high schools are going to start trying to like rework doing fucking gardening, agriculture, like but small farming, not big ag, small ag, like sustainable fucking growth places and shit like that for small places, houses and shit like that. And then like welding and fucking actual auto mechanics and fucking like things that I goddamn wished that I had in fucking high school, like stuff that I was actually asking for. They just never did it. I think things like that, like trades, like there should be a huge part of high school that should just be trades learning. If you want to go into trades learning, fuck yeah, dude. Fucking steam fitter, like pipe fitter, fuck yeah. Want to go to that? Fucking auto body welding, fucking mechanics, fuck yeah, go do that. Like
those exist in the ghetto,
right? Like
they push the ghetto kids towards those types of programs. So that I don't know if you're familiar with like the magnet programs in Indianapolis. Like they brought that shit back, but it was basically for what they deemed to be
to give the riffraff a job.
Yeah.
In the long run, yeah. That happened to me. They didn't give me a job, but I got treated that as such a couple times in Florida, and then like here in Indiana, after living in Vegas and Southern California and Orlando and Texas, and then coming here, I was looked at as like a threat to the rural school that I went to. So I got treated heavily. Like I was just like knew more or wanted more, and if I talked about it too much, like, that was a mark on my scorecard.
So, magnet schools receive additional funding to maintain specialized programs, and that allows them to spend more on really specific types of supplies. But is that really providing, a comprehensive education?
I mean, it's not meant to provide a comprehensive education at all. It's meant to funnel kids.
And that sounds like vocational school.
Yeah, it's vocational. It's 100% vocational school. But that's what I'm saying. It's like meant to be pseudo vocational school because they're all expecting these kids to basically be funneled into the prison industrial to only actually have a few of them actually make it into these vocations. So they're showing these kids that they're not valuable enough to invest in their minds. So they're saying, oh, you're the ones that we're going to invest in vocational school. So it's actually meant to make them feel second class. So because our society doesn't value blue collar work, putting kids in vocational school is meant to make them feel second class.
Well, the value of the fucking work. Like, see, I find that work fucking valuable as shit. I wish I could have learned something like that. So fucking bad. But for others, it could be an impression, and I can see that.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to look at it from the example or from the standpoint society's at now, where we don't acknowledge blue collar work as valuable, and we don't compensate them proportionally to how they're actually contributing to society, especially relative to people like the exploiters at the top. So this is where I'm saying this is like 100% meant. Like, it would be great if it weren't meant to reinforce the notion that blue collar people are not valuable, but that's what it is.
To me, it just feels like blue collar became a subsidiary of the middleman. Like that's what, like, they're telling us that it's good work, it's good blue collar work, but really they're just like, yeah, the only reason why you exist is because I can find you the work. And I've already made this network. And like, it feels like that's taken over so much that, like, some of the trades, yes, are definitely oversaturated in the long run, and a lot of the times for very wrong reasons. Obviously, the prison work funneling out, society judging and condemning really quick to make this the fucking norm. That's all. It's been used also for very like wrong fucking reasons. But if it was ever taught in the likeness that, like, how you build these things are important and what you could do to make them better, and the only way you can make them better is by having better. The only thing that negates science is better science. So if there was a whole bunch of people that just, I don't know, had like the same actual factual information on how this piece of metal welds to that piece of metal in such a structural way that its integrity actually increases when you put the metal together if you do it in this certain way with this type of weld. And then, later on down the line, someone comes up with like a better design for a fucking more safe crash box in a car. So I don't know. Like, you see where I'm going with that? Like, if everyone had the same knowledge to start off with of the same just fucking everyday shit that, like, there's no arguing about. If we had access to that. And like I was saying, like, if that was like healthcare, library, world, utopia, say my name, Sebastian fucking Castle, where we all just had free Wi-Fi and we were able to learn that shit all the time, whenever we wanted. We've been using it for the wrong thing lately.
Here's the thing, though. Like, okay, let's actually carry that out into a thought experiment. If you had the capacity to do anything, you still are limited by 24 hours in a day and the fact that you have to sleep. So theoretically, you have access to all the knowledge in the world, but because you are biologically limited by your time on Earth, you can't. So,
I was thinking about this the other day. Negating the whole entire time experience thing would take to it. How about we actually start retraining the idea of it's okay to actually want to fucking learn something?
Right. And that's ultimately what I'm getting back to, in that even if we had all of the time in the world to access all of the information in the world, like, our actual body becomes our limitation. So then you have to kind of decide, like, hey, am I going to spend this 24 hours? How am I going to spend the next 24 hours? And then the 24 hours after that, because you don't actually have the capacity to have an infinite number of skills, an infinite number of knowledge. And it is a fault.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like things that like obviously in the steps of life, things that you should get to know about you and your body and society and how things work and basic structure things. I think primary and early education, that completely needs a complete overhaul, of course. But like as an adult, yes, that's the whole different amount of experience and a whole different amount of learning. And that's the bigger thing. Is like wanting to learn about something, actually giving a shit to care to know about something. Like I think there's a lot of a way of indoctrinated teaching that has happened for several years that it's made it to where it's hard to learn anything outside of what's being told to you rather than you wanting to do it on your own.
No, and I completely I'm not trying to contradict that point. I'm just trying to like we are actually getting to a point where we are going to have to acknowledge that because of the human limitation on lifespan, classes are going to be necessary in some capacity, in that everybody's not going to be good at everything. So if people are then given the capacity and time to then focus on the things they're good at, they're going to emerge as advanced classes of whatever they choose. So this is kind of where the only way to actually do that is to then acknowledge that people aren't going to be good at everything, which then becomes it almost becomes this limitation of,
it's a divergent story,
right? Because then how do we figure out who becomes the classes without testing them, without getting them back stuck in this paradigm? Because it's like,
what's your 16 personality type?
So the other day I changed the faucet on my kitchen sink because I lost all pressure out of the faucet itself, and I had to go to Menards and select a faucet and unscrew some things and screw some things into place. And
bathroom break.
I'm totally not a fucking plumber. Like, no way. There's a whole set of knowledge to that whole process that I don't know. And I've glued sections of pipe together, and I've screwed some hose connection type things into the bottom of the faucet. But I don't think that I could actually, redo the plumbing in a house by myself. I think there are a lot of things that I wouldn't even think about. Replacing one thing at the end of the chain of hardware, sure, that seems like the easiest part of the job. But there's some of it that's just like, man, defer to a specialist.
Have you seen an HVAC schematic?
Dude, that stuff's crazy.
It is, and that's where again, like the classes of what people have to do, like to become an HVAC installation specialist, you have to be really good at geometry, algebra, and fucking
electronics.
Wiring, electrical wiring, and then on top of that, visualizing space and how the space is going to be used to understand where the air needs to flow. So there's all these things about installing HVACs where you're like, it don't seem like it's that complex of an build, but to do it, you really have to have this specific mindset.
Well, the engineers that do that, they have to understand like flow rates and how much air actually has to move, how many like cubic inches of air have to move through a space for a given period of time. They've got to in large buildings, they have to calculate the amount of atmospheric pressure at the low floors created by the high floors, and how that alters the way airflow occurs through the entire building, and how much pump you actually need to pump air.
Yeah,
Like that
per
stuff's
cubic feet,
crazy.
how much the room is, how much air needs to go into it to move said amount of air, and how much suction you need to remove said amount of air in a constant circulation or without creating back pressure.
Yeah, it's nuts. That's
Dude,
like
air conditioners, air conditioner workers and HVAC still also have to know like metallurgy and fucking chemical composition because they have to use that oxyacetylene torch to fucking weld all together fucking gas lines, the copper gas lines and shit like that have to plug into fucking outdoor air conditioners. My dad used to fucking make oxyacetylene fucking torch bombs. He would just get he would get a Kroger bag or like a Kroger grocery store bag, whatever. He'd get a brown plastic sack and he would just like shove that motherfucker in the bottom of it, fill it up with an oxyacetylene, fucking like rubber band out, put a fuse, and it would float away.
And then explode.
And then, dude, the concussion blasts off that shit would fucking rock the dust off of a wall that was 2 layers of cinder block thick. Like you saw powder shake off of it. Like,
oh man,
those things have a solid concussion blast, and it was a joke to him, like old military shit, whatever. But like, it was a joke to him. But like, this shit, like, you got to be careful as fuck with that shit, dude.
Yeah.
And you're also talking about 240 volt fucking plug-in electrical wires and shit like that and hooking up air conditioner units. He was working a company that did Mitsubishi power generators. So they would do the emergency backup systems and the reserve systems and the subsidiary systems for like skyscrapers all throughout Orlando or throughout Florida. And they just work on top of the buildings and like, you know, they airlift in or they fucking, he was in the military. He already worked around Hueys and fucking dual bladed helicopters, shit like that. Like they'd bring in rooftop air conditioners, power generators and shit like that. His company would go in and fucking put all that shit together and hook up all the lines. And like, you got to solder, you got to have gas compositions. You got to know how to clear the fucking lines. You had to know how to fucking hook up 240 volt up to a fucking live power source that goes to all these other little tiny subsidiary systems that can fucking kill you instantly. Like, there's a lot of tech work in that shit that's actually super important to fucking know. And that's a trade work that actually, like, parts of it could be trade. Some of it's like super fucking technical. I get that. You have to be licensed.
Well, I think some of it requires being an engineer of some sort.
There's a lot that goes into that shit. My dad tried to bargain with me one time when I was like 12 or 13. Said that I can get I was really into BMX biking, still am. I love BMX biking, dirt jumping, mountain biking. He said I can get, he'll buy me a BMX bike if I learn all of the ham operating code book. And if I learn how to be a full-on ham operator, and like, he only gave me 2 weeks to read a book of shit that I had no clue how to understand. Of like circuit paths and all this shit. Like I was like 12. Like, and
that's just cruel and unusual.
This is a book that's like, it's like 6 or 7 fingers thick, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fucking book of just shit that like I was never introduced to before. I didn't know what I was getting my fucking ass into. Obviously, to say I did not get the bike. The bike was never mine. But my dad was always into that shit and really incredibly hard to fucking follow, but it was really cool to watch him fucking pretty much build his own fucking CBs and hammer operated radios and stuff. Talking to people in Australia and shit when I was a kid was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, you know, I've looked into like radio licensing and ham operating, civilian radio licensing. It's not for the faint of heart. Like you kind of,
it's expensive.
You need to take it's prohibitively expensive for certain types of things, but
yeah, you better be retired or retired.
Yeah. And have a lot of time.
Just all the time. Widowed.
I mean, there are like,
I don't know.
There are classes.
No grandkids.
There are classes for that stuff that, you know, it's not just like one class. There's all sorts of considerations and power levels and just all of the requirements for it. It just seemed like, man, I'm not ready to get into ham radio. I'm not old enough for that.
I mean, bouncing off sunspots or something, some curvature, magnetic, blah blah blah. That's cool. Like my dad did all that shit when I was like, cool, you did it. But he had like $9,000 worth of fucking shit just in front of him on a table in a room in the back corner of a house. Like he never went anywhere, never did anything. Really, just he fucked around with people on the radio. I don't know if you guys, okay, so you know the interrupting cow joke, right? The moo. So my dad figured out how to take a guitar pedal fucking delay effect out of an old Dan Electric guitar pedal and wire a proto board to be a circuit on a push button military style microphone for his CB radio.
What, to moo?
And to moo because it goes moo, 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 moo. And so and he did this in California and he did this in Orlando, but he did it on such a big scale. Like he targeted like certain highways that were just trafficked with like a lot of truckers and shit, but he wouldn't be on the highways. He'd be like in the neighborhoods underneath them and shit. And he'd just be driving. So like he would have a good 15 minutes with these fuckers. They would start like arguing about something. He'd just be like, no,
Lord.
and then they would just start like, fuck this cow motherfucker. And like, it would turn into like a 2-day ordeal. Okay, so my dad actually got fucking tracked down by one of these assholes. They traced his fucking signal because he was fucking with them so bad. And my dad comes out of a fucking Walmart and this dude is like casing his fucking truck, pulls a gun on him.
Whoa.
And my dad pulls a gun back and fires and it grazes the dude's head and dude goes into coma. Turns out dude had one of those fucking 38 special looking pepper spray guns. It like mimicked the gun. It looked like the gun. And so like this dude's like in this huge jacked up Dodge truck, like red, huge CB antenna flinging off the back of it. Little short dude just jumps the fuck out of it, comes running at my dad. My dad's like, fuck. And the dude reaches behind his back, pulls out a gun. My dad actually had a fucking video camera on his dash, recorded the whole fucking thing. And like, cops are just like, this is stupid. 2 grown men chased each other down over a radio. And like, that's honestly what it was. Turns out my dad worked at Universal Studios, got fired because of a contract that said that he could never be in an altercation like that, public or media wise, otherwise related to a gun or any types of public violence. And then he kind of like became the face of the take your gun to work day in Orlando.
Oh, goodness.
Because Universal and Disney were like, well, we don't really like guns, but they're like, hey, but I got a right to protect myself from other crazy assholes that you decided to hire. And it was like a weird thing for a second. It's kind of weird. Like all that was from radio. And now I'm thinking back, man, when I was 12, my dad really wanted me to fucking use one of these things. And then my dad used it as a fucking joke and some asshole tried to fucking
Pepper spray his ass.
Yeah, like trying to bruise somebody's ass, like just fucking in the middle of fucking a Walmart parking lot. What the fuck?
Hold on. Hey, this is America. I'm,
right.
You know, at this point, I'm not actually surprised by that.
White men have a fucking argument over ham radio.
Ham radio beef.
That's man. That the dude tracked him down though.
Yeah.
No, it was signal strength, and if you have obviously the right equipment or built the right equipment inside your vehicles and stuff like that, you can obviously you can get signal strength, and you can start to triangulate shit. Like it's all like my dad got into it because of the military. He did mechanics and electronics, March Air Force Base in California, and did like basically tear downs of vehicles that got blown up in electronics diagnostics and mechanical repair. So like it was just nerd shit. It's just little tiny tinkering shit that he could put in front of him and fucking focus on all day. And he was good at that shit.
Fucking,
you know, but like all it was for him was a joke, but like some asshole was like, I'm gonna fucking kill you because you go moo.
They completely took that seriously. You know, I mean, I think at some point, not everything gets to be a joke. I mean, I know that the whole jackass culture kind of ruined a good joke because everyone had to go just a little bit further and potentially hurt themselves. And some of those guys are dead now because they maintained, you know, unsafe life practices beyond the camera. And, you know, earlier I mentioned that I was reading about this police chase that ended in destroying a brick building. Like, at some point, I think we've got to just re-examine what it is people are actually doing. Like, obviously, high-speed chase isn't safe for everyone
So
around them. But like, at what point do we recognize like, hey, maybe like encouraging certain types of behavior isn't actually a good idea?
Yeah, facilitating it and enabling it at the same time by recognizing it. It's like if the police further give into the chase, it's going to make it fucking worse.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of the back off like rules that they started to have, like on anything that was a high speed chase that once it hits a certain mile per hour, they just like, no, we stop chasing.
Well, they've got
Because
helicopters.
at that point, they have helicopters or other city utilities, or they've notified other counties to be on the lookout, but do not pursue to make it worse. I've heard of some steps of that enacting, and that's the forethought and accountability that I would like to eventually see in some kind of beautiful future self-policing society. Is that because we know we shouldn't do any dumb shit that risk anybody else. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it to myself.
It's almost always like an adult that is engaged in some dumb bullshit behavior, and it's like, man, we're all adults and we're supposed to know better, but apparently those lessons aren't getting taught, or they're not being taken to heart, or everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame no matter what it costs. I don't know. It's just sometimes it feels like we're in the twilight zone, because there's no way that anyone could have come up with this shit. Maybe it's always been there, and it's just the internet reveals it and makes it possible to recognize, oh, this whole like spectrum of bullshit behavior is actually real.
The zeitgeist has become self-aware and is rejecting the program. I think there was a wave of like, what the fuck, that hit everybody too. That was just our media has changed. How fast we realize we can find our media has changed. I think that's proven itself. Over in the past like 2 weeks, no matter what, I think that's proven itself. What was happening in Kenosha, what was happening in fucking Iowa, and what was happening in LA, what was happening in DC, fucking the amount of information, how fast it goes out, how fast you can interpret something, how fast you can learn.
Yeah.
I think that's scary, and that's okay. That's okay for it to be scary. I think some people are taking it aggressively with how scary it is when it's not really that. But
So the guy that set fire to the 3rd precinct in a police station in Minneapolis was charged with arson. His name is Brandon Michael Wolf, and apparently some kind of like white nationalist. Yeah, he's part of that whole group of people that are infiltrating protests, and that guy's getting charged.
They're finding out that there's a lot more. I posted an article on my my FB page, and there's a bunch of articles that are credited to where they're finding this out information and putting it together. That there's a lot.
Yeah, this stuff's being proven over and over again.
Wing, just fucking super extreme, crazy fucking bullshit. That is just fucking insane. And like I had this notion today before we had the show, and it's like, okay, so like these right-wing extremist people are wanting to go out and be playing terrorists in the street because they want all of us to back the cops to protect us from the terrorists in the street.
But they are the terrorists in the street.
They are the. So you can't physically be making the problem and say that's why we need this, because that argument's instantly defeated when you go, but if you just didn't do that in the first place, none of it.
Asking for, they're just asking for the cops to stop doing what they're doing and stop being terrorists. And then they respond with more terrorism.
Yeah, no, I've said this before in a couple of comment threads. You can't create the problem and then beat the problem when you don't like, when it says, I don't like how you're beating me when I say stop it. Like, you can't physically be the fucking goddamn thing that is making the fucking problem happen and then go, oh, they're not liking this problem. And then fucking physically attack them.
I mean,
and because you don't like how they're responding to how they're being treated, like that's
the bully that holds the person being bullied's hand and smacks him in the head, said, "Quit hitting yourself." that bully doesn't respond to being to polite requests to stop.
Yeah, exactly. Like you
That's
can't be
the
like,
problem.
please stop, and they're gonna do it. Like
They don't have an incentive. They say, well, we won't do our jobs if we don't get to, bully people.
and that's not a bargaining chip either. And it's like,
That's
oh,
really-
you're saying
yeah.
that we don't do our job? Well, guess what? We're not gonna do our job even more. That's like, how the fuck is that a bargaining chip? You can't fucking be like, hey guys, we want you to be accountable. And there's ethical ways of fucking doing this so it's accountable for everyone to fucking see this and everyone gets it fucking fair. And they're like, yeah, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do something worse than what we're not already doing. And then everybody just like stood there and accepted that. I don't know what the fuck happened after that, but like, that's still not the fucking discourse. Like, I heard some fucking cop yell, you have a blessed day, and try to make it religious. I'm like, God damn it, dude, you're a public servant. Your religious beliefs and your political beliefs have nothing to fucking do with this. Do your fucking job.
Yeah, that's...
Like, there's things that come with this that are just inherent rules about, God damn it. Like, if it's going to fucking work, please goddamn try to do it, right?
Exceptional Radio.
Exceptional Randos Show is produced live in Sunroom Studios' Base Capsule and in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Well, that was random. Exceptional Radio.